Growing up, Madison and I were inseparable. She was my best friend, my confidant, the person I thought would always have my back. I worked 70-hour weeks for 8 years to buy my dream penthouse in downtown Seattle, complete with a rooftop terrace and views of the Space Needle. It represented everything I had sacrificed for every late-night coding session, every missed dinner with friends. When Madison got engaged to Derek, I was thrilled to be her maid of honor. I never imagined that the happiest day of her life would become the day that destroyed our family forever. Before I dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below, and please hit that like button and subscribe for more real family stories. Trust me, you will not believe how this wedding day turned everything upside down and changed our family forever. At 32, I had finally achieved what I had been working toward since college. My penthouse on the 28th floor was not just an apartment. It was proof that all those sleepless nights debugging code and missing social events had been worth it. 2,500 square feet of pure satisfaction, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a rooftop terrace where I could see the entire city spread out below me. The $2.8 million price tag had required every penny I had saved plus a mortgage that kept me working those brutal 70 to 80-hour weeks at my software engineering job. Madison, my younger sister by 3 years, had always been the social butterfly of our family. Where I spent my evenings hunched over my laptop, she was out making connections and living what she called a balanced life. She worked as a marketing coordinator, making $45,000 a year, which was decent money, but nowhere near enough for the lifestyle she craved. I loved my sister dearly, but I had noticed over the years how she would always find ways to compare our lives, usually with a subtle dig about how some people just get lucky. When Madison announced her engagement to Derek, a sweet accountant, who made about $55,000 a year, I was genuinely happy for her. Derek was a good guy, patient and kind, and he clearly adored my sister. But I could see the stress creeping into Madison's eyes whenever conversations turned to wedding planning and their future living arrangements. Their combined income was solid for a young couple, but Madison had expensive tastes that did not quite match their budget. The first hint of trouble came about 6 months before the wedding. Madison had brought Derek over to my place for dinner, and as we sat on my rooftop terrace watching the sunset paint the city gold, she made what I thought was a joke. "You know, Olive, you have so much space here. You should totally rent out a room or something. Derek and I could be your tenants." She laughed, but there was something in her voice that made me look at her twice. "I like having my own space," I replied gently. "Besides, you two will want your privacy as newlyweds." Derek nodded in agreement, but Madison's smile flickered for just a moment. "Of course, just thinking out loud. Some people have all the luck with real estate timing." Over the next few months, Madison started bringing friends over more frequently. She would give them tours of the penthouse, showing off the gourmet kitchen and the bathroom with the soaking tub, talking as if she had some ownership stake in the place. I began to feel uncomfortable in my own home, watching my sister's friends ooh and ah over what I had worked so hard to achieve while Madison basked in their admiration. "Madison loves coming here," one of her friends mentioned to me during one of these impromptu visits. "She talks about this place all the time at work." I started noticing other things too. Madison would make comments like, "Some people are just lucky with their careers, I guess," or, "Not everyone can afford to live alone in luxury." The words stung because she made it sound like my success was random chance, rather than the result of years of sacrifice and hard work. The turning point came 3 months before her wedding. Madison called me crying, saying that she and Derek had been looking at apartments, and everything decent was either too expensive or too small. She asked if they could borrow my penthouse for a couple of years while they saved money for a down payment on their own place. "Where would I live?" I asked, genuinely confused by her request. You could rent a smaller place temporarily. It would really help us get started, and you know Derek and I would take great care of everything." I felt my stomach drop. "Madison, this is my home. I worked 8 years to be able to afford this place. I cannot just give it up." Her tears turned to anger quickly. "I cannot believe how selfish you are being. This is about family, Olive. Derek and I need help, and you could provide it, but you are choosing not to. It is not about not wanting to help, but you are asking me to give up my home, everything I have worked for. You have always been jealous that I found love first," she snapped. "Now you cannot stand to see me happy." That accusation hit like a physical blow. "That is not fair, and you know it." "Whatever. I thought my sister would want to help me start my marriage right, but I guess I was wrong." After that call, Madison barely spoke to me for 2 weeks. When I finally reached out to ask about my role as maid of honor, her response was ice cold. "We will see what role you want to play in this family." Things escalated during the wedding planning phase. Madison informed me that the bridesmaid dress she had selected cost $400, knowing full well that I had already spent a fortune on her engagement party and bridal shower gifts. When I hesitated about the price, she said it was important that her wedding party look perfect, and that surely I could manage one dress purchase. Then came the night she announced that the rehearsal dinner would be held at my penthouse without consulting me first. "I thought you would want to contribute to my happiness," she said when I expressed surprise at her assumption. "Derek's family is so excited to see your place." I agreed to avoid creating more drama, but I felt like I was being taken advantage of. Madison was treating my home like it was a family asset available for her use, rather than something I had earned through my own efforts. The situation reached a breaking point when Madison invited the entire wedding party over for what she called planning sessions. I arrived home from work one evening to find 8 people in my living room with Madison holding court like she owned the place. One of the bridesmaids pulled me aside and said, "It is so cool that you are giving Madison your place after the wedding. She is so lucky to have a sister like you." My blood turned to ice. I confronted Madison privately in my bedroom. "What exactly have you been telling people about my penthouse?" I never said anything specific. People just assumed that family helps family. "Madison, you need to clarify with everyone that this is not happening. You are giving people the wrong impression." "Why cannot you just be happy for me? You have everything you could ever want. You live alone in this huge place while Derek and I are struggling to find something decent we can afford. I worked for everything I have. You cannot just expect me to hand it over because you want it. Some sister you are. I should have known you would be selfish when I need you most." The month leading up to Madison's wedding was filled with tension that seemed to grow thicker by the day. Despite our argument, I remained committed to being her maid of honor, because deep down, I still hoped we could repair our relationship. Madison, however, had other plans. She began what I could only describe as a campaign to turn our family against me. First came the phone calls to our parents. Madison presented her version of events, carefully omitting key details about her demands for my penthouse, while emphasizing my refusal to help family. Within days, I received a call from our mother. "Olive's sweetheart Madison is really upset about this housing situation. Could you not find some way to help her and Derek get started? Mom, she wants me to give up my penthouse and move somewhere else so they can live there for free." "Well, you do have a lot of space, and Madison is getting married. Maybe you could work something out. Would you give up your home to someone else, even family?" There was a pause. "That is different. We have been in our house for 30 years. And I have been working toward this penthouse for 8 years. Why is my hard work less valid?" But the conversation went nowhere. Our parents did not understand the tech industry or the sacrifices I had made. To them, Madison was the one getting married and starting a family, which somehow made her needs more legitimate than my desire to keep the home I had earned. Madison's manipulation extended beyond our parents. She began posting on social media about the challenges of finding affordable housing as a young couple, with pointed comments about how family support can make all the difference. Her posts garnered sympathy from friends and extended family who did not know the full story. 2 weeks before the wedding, Madison made one final push. She showed up at my office during lunch with Derek in tow, both of them looking serious. "We need to talk," Madison announced, settling into the chair across from my desk while Derek looked uncomfortable by the door. "Derek's parents have been asking about our living situation, and we told them we might have something figured out through family. They are offering to help with a down payment if we can find the right temporary arrangement." I looked at Derek, who was staring at the floor. "Did you know Madison was planning to ask me to move out of my penthouse?" Derek's head snapped up. "What Madison? You said your sister had offered to let us stay there while we saved money." The look of betrayal on Derek's face was painful to witness. Madison quickly backtracked. "I said she might be willing to help, not that she had definitely offered." "There is a big difference between those two things," Derek said quietly. "This is exactly what I am talking about," Madison said, her voice rising. "Everyone is making me out to be the bad guy when all I want is some family support during the biggest transition of my life. Madison, I have supported you in every way I can think of except giving up my home. I have paid for your engagement party, your bridal shower and expensive bridesmaid dress, and I am hosting your rehearsal dinner. How is that not supportive? Because when it really mattered, when I asked for the one thing that would actually help Derek and me build our future, you said no." Derek shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should look at other options, Madison. There are some nice apartments we could afford. Why should we settle for less when there is a perfect solution sitting right here?" Madison gestured around my office as if my success was somehow proof that I owed her something. That afternoon, Derek called me privately. "I had no idea Madison had been pressuring you like this. She made it sound like you had volunteered to help us out temporarily." "I would help you both any way I can, Derek, but I cannot give up my home." "I understand completely. I am going to talk to Madison about managing her expectations." But whatever conversation Derek had with Madison only seemed to make her angrier. 3 days before the wedding, she called to inform me that several family members would be staying at my penthouse during the wedding weekend, because she had promised them accommodation. "You cannot make commitments about my home without asking me first." "God, Olive, it is one weekend. Are you really going to make our relatives pay for hotel rooms when you have plenty of space?" I ended up accommodating the family members because the alternative was causing a scene 3 days before Madison's wedding. But I was reaching my breaking point. Every interaction with my sister now felt like a battle over my boundaries and my right to make decisions about my own life. The night before the wedding, during the rehearsal dinner at my penthouse, Madison stood up to make a speech. Looking around at Derek's family and our relatives gathered in my living room, she said, "I am so grateful to everyone who has supported Derek and me during this exciting time. It means everything to have family who believe in helping each other build a future together." Her eyes locked on mine for that last sentence, and I felt the weight of her expectations and disappointment. Several of Derek's relatives glanced at me with warm smiles, clearly still under the impression that I was providing some kind of ongoing support for the couple. After the guests left that night, Madison lingered behind while Derek loaded gifts into their car. "This could all be so much easier, you know," she said, looking around the penthouse one more time. "Derek's family thinks we have everything figured out. Tomorrow is supposed to be the happiest day of my life, but instead, I will be thinking about apartment hunting and budget constraints. Madison, your happiness should not depend on living in my penthouse." "Easy for you to say. You get to come home to all this every night while Derek and I will be crammed into some tiny apartment, probably in a neighborhood we do not even like. That is how most people start out. Derek seems happy just to be marrying you. Derek deserves better than what we can afford on our own. Derek deserves honesty about what you can afford together. Madison's face hardened. I hope you feel good about your decision when you are sitting alone in your perfect apartment while your sister struggles to build a life with her husband. I hope you can find a way to be happy with what you and Derek create together, instead of resenting what I have built for myself. She left without another word, and I spent the night wondering if I was about to lose my sister forever over a conflict that should never have happened in the first place. Madison's wedding day dawned perfect and bright with the kind of crisp autumn weather that made everything seem possible. The ceremony was being held at Willowbrook Country Club, an elegant venue about 30 minutes outside the city that could accommodate the 200 guests Madison had insisted on inviting. Despite everything that had happened between us, I was determined to be the best maid of honor I could be, and hopefully find a way to repair our relationship. I arrived early for pictures and found Madison in the bridal suite surrounded by makeup artists and bridesmaids. She looked absolutely stunning in her dress, a flowing creation that had cost more than Derek made in 2 months. For a moment, seeing her radiant smile, I forgot about all our conflicts and felt pure joy for my sister. "You look beautiful," I told her genuinely. "Thank you," she replied, but her tone was cooler than it should have been on her wedding day. As the morning progressed, I noticed Madison having hushed conversations with various wedding party members and family members. I caught snippets of phrases like family priorities and disappointment, but tried to focus on my duties rather than whatever narrative Madison was crafting. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Derek looked nervous but happy as he waited at the altar, and when Madison walked down the aisle, the love on his face was unmistakable. Standing beside my sister as she exchanged vows, I felt hopeful that maybe marriage would give her the security and happiness she was seeking, and we could move past this difficult period. Madison's vows were lovely, touching on partnership and family support, and building a life together. But when she mentioned the importance of family standing by each other through major life transitions, her eyes found mine in the crowd, and I felt that familiar knot in my stomach. The cocktail hour began with congratulations and celebration, but I noticed Madison working the room in a way that seemed calculated rather than joyful. She was holding court near the bar, talking to Derek's parents and extended family about the realities of starting married life in today's economy. Housing costs have gotten so crazy. I heard her tell Derek's aunt, a successful real estate agent. Young couples really need family support to get established these days. Derek's aunt nodded sympathetically. That is why families help each other out. I assume you two have some kind of arrangement worked out. We are still figuring out the details, Madison replied, glancing meaningfully in my direction. I approached their conversation, hoping to redirect it. The venue looks amazing, Madison. You did such a great job planning everything. Thank you. It helps when family comes together to make things special. Again, that pointed look. Derek's aunt smiled at me. Madison mentioned you might be helping them with housing while they save for their own place. That is so generous. I felt trapped. Correcting the misconception would embarrass Madison on her wedding day, but staying silent felt like endorsing a lie. Madison and Derek are very capable of making their own housing decisions, I said carefully. Of course, but it is nice when family can make the transition easier, the aunt continued. Derek mentioned something about a penthouse arrangement. Derek appeared at that moment looking confused. What penthouse arrangement? Madison's face flushed. We talked about this, Derek. No, we talked about you asking your sister for help, and then you told me she had said no. The awkwardness was palpable. Derek's aunt looked between all of us, clearly sensing tension, but not understanding its source. "Maybe we should focus on celebrating today," I suggested, but Madison was not ready to let it go. "Some people have very different ideas about family obligations," she said loud enough for nearby guests to hear. The comment created a ripple of uncomfortable glances. I excused myself and headed toward the bathroom, needing a moment to collect myself, but I could hear Madison continuing the conversation behind me. Dinner was an elegant affair with speeches from Derek's best man and father. Everything was going smoothly until Madison stood up with her champagne glass, ostensibly to thank everyone for coming. "Derek and I are so grateful to be surrounded by people who love and support us," she began, her voice carrying across the silent room. "Starting a marriage today is both exciting and challenging, especially with housing costs and all the pressures young couples face." I felt a chill creeping up my spine. We are fortunate to have family members who understand the importance of helping each other during major life transitions. Unfortunately, not everyone believes in making sacrifices for family when it really matters. The room was completely quiet now, with 200 guests hanging on every word. Derek looked mortified, tugging gently at Madison's dress to encourage her to sit down. "Madison, maybe save this for later," he whispered, but she ignored him. "I want everyone to know how grateful I am to those who have supported Derek and me, and how disappointed I am in those who have chosen not to." I stood up, my heart racing. "Madison, can we please talk about this privately?" "No, I am done being private about this. Tell everyone why you will not let your own sister live in your penthouse while she and her new husband save money for their future." The gasp that went up from 200 guests was audible. Derek buried his face in his hands while his parents looked stunned. I felt every eye in the room on me, judging me based on Madison's one-sided presentation of our conflict. "Because it is my home that I worked 8 years to afford," I said as calmly as I could manage. "You are selfish, and you have always been jealous of my happiness." Madison shot back, her voice getting louder and more emotional. "That is not true, and you know it. You cannot stand that I found love, and now you want to sabotage my marriage by forcing us into poverty. Madison, nobody is forcing you into anything. You and Derek have good jobs and can afford a nice place together." But Madison was beyond reason now. She had been building up to this moment for months, and nothing was going to stop her from having her public confrontation. She stormed away from her seat at the head table and marched over to where I was standing. "You have ruined my wedding day with your selfishness," she hissed close enough that I could see tears of rage in her eyes. "I have not ruined anything. You are the one making a scene." And that is when she slapped me, hard, across the face. In front of 200 wedding guests, my sister struck me with enough force that my head snapped to the side and my cheek immediately began to burn. The silence that followed was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in that room as everyone processed what they had just witnessed. Derek shot up from his seat, rushing over with a look of absolute horror on his face. "Madison, what the hell are you doing?" "She deserved it," Madison said defiantly. "She has been ruining my wedding day and my marriage before it even started." But as Madison looked around the room, she began to realize that the reactions she was getting were not what she had expected. Instead of sympathy and support, she was seeing shock, disapproval, and embarrassment. Derek's grandmother was shaking her head in dismay. Our own parents looked mortified. Even the wedding photographer, who had been discreetly capturing moments throughout the evening, had inadvertently captured the slap. And then, cutting through the stunned silence, came a voice I had not expected to hear. "Young lady, I just witnessed that assault, and it was completely unacceptable." The voice belonged to Judge Patricia Morrison, Derek's aunt, who had been sitting at a table near the head of the room. Judge Morrison was a respected family court judge with 30 years of experience, and her presence at the wedding suddenly took on a much more significant meaning. Madison, still defiant, turned toward the judge. She had it coming. She has been trying to sabotage my marriage. Judge Morrison stood up slowly, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to maintaining order in chaotic situations. I do not care what your personal grievances are. Assault is assault regardless of your feelings about family obligations. What you just did is a crime, and I witnessed it along with 200 other people. The judge's words seemed to snap Derek out of his shock. Madison, you need to apologize to your sister right now. I am not apologizing for standing up to someone who does not care about family, Madison replied, but there was less conviction in her voice now as she began to realize how badly she had miscalculated. Judge Morrison pulled out her business card and handed it to me. Miss, if you want to pursue this legally, here is my contact information. What happened here tonight was witnessed by everyone in this room. Country Club security had appeared at the edge of the room, clearly alerted by staff who had witnessed the altercation. The head of security approached our table with the kind of professional calm that suggested this was not the first wedding reception drama he had dealt with. Is everything under control here? He asked, looking between Madison, Derek, and me. Judge Morrison answered for everyone. There was a physical altercation that I witnessed as an officer of the court. The young woman in the wedding dress struck her sister across the face. Madison finally seemed to understand that the situation was spiraling completely out of her control. Guests were murmuring among themselves, many getting up to leave early. Derek's family looked absolutely appalled, and our own parents were making their way over with expressions of shock and disappointment. This is not how I wanted this to go, Madison said weakly, but the damage was done. Derek looked at his new wife with a mixture of disappointment and disbelief. Madison, how could you do this? This is not the person I thought I married. I was still in shock, my cheek throbbing where Madison had struck me, trying to process the fact that my sister had just assaulted me in front of hundreds of people on what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. I left the reception with as much dignity as I could muster, accompanied by Judge Morrison, who insisted on escorting me to my car. The parking lot felt surreal after the chaos of the reception hall quiet, except for the distant sound of music and conversation from other events at the country club. Are you all right, dear? Judge Morrison asked, her stern courtroom demeanor softening into genuine concern. I think so. I just cannot believe that actually happened. I have seen a lot of family conflicts in my courtroom, but that was one of the most public displays of entitlement I have witnessed. Your sister clearly has some serious issues with boundaries and expectations. Judge Morrison handed me her business card again, making sure I had her contact information. I want you to know that if you decide to pursue this legally, you have a very strong case. Assault in front of 200 witnesses, including a sitting judge, is not something that can be easily dismissed. I appreciate that, but I just want to go home and try to process what happened. I understand, but please keep my card. Sometimes people need time to think about their options. Derek appeared in the parking lot just as Judge Morrison was getting into her car. He looked devastated, his bow tie undone, and his usually neat hair disheveled from running his hands through it. Olive, I am so sorry. I had no idea Madison was capable of something like this. It is not your fault, Derek. It kind of is. I should have shut down her demands about your penthouse months ago instead of hoping she would come to her senses. Derek's honesty was refreshing after months of Madison's manipulation. What are you going to do? I do not know. I cannot pretend that what just happened is okay. Madison assaulted you at our wedding reception because you would not give up your home. That is not the person I thought I was marrying. She was under a lot of stress about the wedding and your future together. That is not an excuse for hitting someone, especially not her own sister. Derek looked back toward the country club where the reception was presumably continuing without the bride and groom. I think I need some time to figure out who I actually married tonight. Over the next week, the fallout from Madison's wedding reception spread through our family and social circles like wildfire. The photographer, despite being asked not to, had posted some reception photos on social media, and unfortunately one of them captured the moment of the slap. Within days, the image was circulating among family members and friends, making it impossible for Madison to control the narrative. Derek moved out of their shared apartment 3 days after the wedding, telling Madison he needed time to think about their marriage. His family, who had been looking forward to welcoming Madison into their family, were horrified by her behavior and struggled to understand how someone could assault a family member over housing arrangements. Derek's mother called me directly to apologize. "We had no idea Madison had been pressuring you about your home. Derek told us the whole story, and we are appalled by her behavior." "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. I appreciate you reaching out. That young woman has some serious growing up to do. Derek is questioning everything about their relationship now." My own parents finally began to understand the full scope of what had been happening after multiple family members who attended the wedding called to share their shock at Madison's behavior. Our mother called me crying. "Olive, sweetheart, I had no idea Madison had been pressuring you like this. We thought she just wanted some help with housing, not that she expected you to give up your home. I tried to explain it to you and Dad several times. I know, and I am sorry we did not listen. Sometimes parents hear what they want to hear instead of what their children are actually saying." Our father was more direct when he called. "Madison was completely out of line. You do not owe anyone your home, not even family. We raised her better than this." Madison herself seemed to be in complete denial about the severity of what she had done. She sent me a text message 2 days after the wedding that read, "I am sorry things got heated at the reception, but you really hurt me by not supporting my marriage. I hope you can understand how disappointed I was." The text message showed no real understanding of what she had done wrong. She was treating a physical assault like it was a minor disagreement between sisters, rather than a serious violation that had been witnessed by hundreds of people. A week later, Derek filed for annulment citing fraud in the marriage contract. His lawyer argued that Madison had misrepresented their financial situation and her expectations for family support, which constituted deception about fundamental aspects of their planned life together. Madison's response was to blame me for the dissolution of her marriage. She posted on social media about family members who choose personal comfort over supporting loved ones during difficult times, and the devastating impact of selfishness on young marriages. But the narrative she was trying to create did not match what people had witnessed. Friends and family members who had been at the wedding began sharing their own perspectives on social media and in private conversations, making it clear that Madison's version of events was not accurate. One of Derek's cousins who worked in social media marketing posted a long explanation of what he had witnessed at the wedding, including Madison's demands that I give up my penthouse, and her physical assault when I refused. His post was shared hundreds of times, reaching far beyond our immediate family circle. Madison's employer somehow learned about the incident, likely through social media or mutual connections, and within 2 weeks of the wedding, Madison was let go from her marketing coordinator position. Her supervisor told her that the company could not employ someone who had been involved in such a public display of violence, especially someone in a client-facing role. The professional consequences seemed to finally wake Madison up to the reality of what her actions had cost her. She lost her job, her marriage was being annulled, and she had to move back in with our parents because she could no longer afford her apartment on Derek's income alone. 3 months after the wedding, Derek reached out to me for coffee. He looked like he had lost weight and seemed older but more at peace than I had seen him in months. "I wanted to thank you," he said, as we sat in a quiet cafe downtown. "Thank me for what?" for standing your ground. I realize now that if you had given in to Madison's demands, it would not have solved anything. She would have just found other ways to test boundaries and make unreasonable demands. I am sorry your marriage did not work out. I am not. Madison showed me exactly who she was that night, and I am grateful I found out sooner rather than later. Imagine if we had had children, and then I discovered she was willing to be physically violent when she did not get her way. Derek had started dating someone new, a teacher who owned a small condo and was happy with their modest but comfortable lifestyle. She actually thinks it is impressive that I work hard and budget carefully. Madison always made me feel like I was not providing enough. 6 months after the wedding that ended before the reception was over, I was settling into a new normal. The initial trauma of being slapped in front of 200 people had faded, replaced by a clearer understanding of my own boundaries and the importance of protecting them. I started therapy to process not just the wedding incident, but the years of subtle manipulation and guilt-tripping that had led up to it. My therapist helped me understand that Madison's entitlement had been building for years, and that her expectations about my penthouse were just the most recent example of a long pattern. Madison made one attempt at reconciliation through our parents suggesting that we meet for coffee to clear the air. But when I read the text message she sent proposing the meeting, it was clear that she still did not understand what she had done wrong. I think we both made mistakes that night, her message read. Maybe we can find a way to move forward as sisters. The fact that she described assault as a mutual mistake told me everything I needed to know about whether she was ready for a genuine reconciliation. I chose to maintain limited contact with Madison, seeing her only at family holidays, and keeping our interactions brief and cordial. Our parents were disappointed, but understood my decision, especially after they began to notice Madison's pattern of entitlement in their own interactions with her. My penthouse continued to be my sanctuary, but now it felt even more precious because I had fought to keep it. I started hosting dinner parties for friends and colleagues, filling the space with people who appreciated what I had built rather than resenting it. I also began volunteering with a nonprofit that helped young women in tech navigate workplace challenges and financial planning. Sharing my story about standing firm against family pressure to give up my achievements resonated with other women who faced similar expectations to minimize their success for the comfort of others. One evening, as I stood on my rooftop terrace watching the sunset paint the Seattle skyline in shades of gold and pink, I reflected on everything that had happened. The slap that had seemed so devastating at the time had actually been a gift in disguise. It had forced me to see Madison clearly taught our family about boundaries and respect, and showed me the importance of protecting what I had worked so hard to achieve. That slap in front of 200 people was the most painful and liberating moment of my life. It hurt to lose my sister, but I gained something more valuable: self-respect. Sometimes people show you exactly who they are when they do not get what they want. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let them face the consequences of their choices. I still live in my penthouse, and now it truly feels like home, because it is filled only with people who respect what I have built, not those who feel entitled to take it. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to stand up to family members who felt entitled to your success? How did you handle the pressure to give up something you worked hard for? Please like this video if my story resonated with you. Subscribe for more real family tales, and share this with anyone who needs to hear that it is okay to protect your boundaries even with family. Thank you for listening, and remember that your achievements are valid and worth protecting, no matter who tries to convince you otherwise.